But when I try to dress conservative, or I do dress conservative, like a jacket and tie and blue jeans, they are much more receptive. Okay. And it's much more effective by being looking like a straight guy and coming out there and being bananas.
When did you figure that out?
Uh, well, it's, you know, it's something that I feel it became self-evident. Okay. Yeah, I won this. It's Armani, Salvation Armani. Yeah. Okay. But no, I found out that is this the first time somebody has done a costume change on Coop
Oh yeah,
Talk?
yeah. And
Okay,
tie
yeah,
changes.
I
And
want to
tie
take that.
changes.
Yeah. Okay. And but no, I found that out through trial and error. And then it was because if you come out and you look straight, they're gonna give you a little bit more respect, and you're not coming right out of the gate as being, and throwing junk around. It's better to, build up to that. And building up to that is either to use less props or.
This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Buckle up because it's funny as Coop's Comedy Corner.
Welcome to Coop's Comedy Corner. I'm your host, Steve Cooper. And I got to tell you something, people. When I was first dating my now wife, Joanna, I was coming back from the East Coast from LA. It was 12 years ago. And I was booked at Andy Scarpati's comedy cabaret at the Corolla restaurant in Marlton, where I now live. And it was right around the corner from where we live. And I was put on a show with the Wid, my guest, the legendary Wid. And I probably had not seen him since 1992 or 93. And I'm going to tell you something. I laughed my ass off. I usually don't stay in the room to watch comics. Now, I was sitting in the back and I was featuring for him. And he was so damn funny. And he's here today. And I've known this guy probably since 1988. And we've never had like a real one-on-one conversation. And my guest is the legendary Wid. What's up, Wid?
That's a showbiz romance. Okay. We don't see each other that much because you're headlining and I'm out there with my little act. And it's thank you for having me on, Steve. I know I keep through Facebook. I see what you do. You take a lot of pictures of food. I like that. Okay, that's something that I think that you slip in very well. Rock and roll and food. I mean, that's what else could we ask for? You don't.
Exactly.
You're not a big drinker, right?
I drink, but I don't drink like I used to. But I don't post pictures of me drunk because I'm not sort of like I'm too old for that shit. That's like a 30-year-old's game, putting up drunk pictures.
They give it to us.
That's no good.
They give it to us for free too. When you're working, and it's a hazard. Okay, so anything that I did back in the day that was like sort of questionable. That that's when I was drinking. I can now say that with that I haven't had a drop in 14 years, I think.
That's awesome.
And I am thirsty. Okay.
Yeah.
It's tempted once or twice, but it's showbiz. You got to watch out. That's what happened to all those rappers.
Get to showbiz. If people are familiar with Zach, he's the ultimate prop comic. He has so many different props, but they're all weaved into jokes. I know. I mean, I remember emceeing for him years ago, and at the Comedy Works, like have to like climb on the stage after he was done. When did you get this fascination with props? Because I've never really talked to someone. You have such an extensive collection. Where did this fascination come from?
Well, as when I grew up, I grew up in Cranford, New Jersey, which is like a very nice community. Okay, there's a great river running through it. Cranford, New Jersey, on the outskirts of Newark and Elizabeth, and all these other treacherous places. This was a nice place. So they had the greatest garbage days. Okay, when I was growing up. All right, they would throw out things, and they would have designated times when they were going to do this. So as I grew up, okay, I would go junk picking every, three, 4 times a year when they had the big thing. And it was almost a festival in the town. This is like 1960s, 70s, New Jersey, and it was, and I started making jokes with that. And to my brothers and sisters and my family, then I took it to school, and I got out of a lot of, situations because of, the sense of humor and being able to do those things. And then I took it to high school, and they left me alone because I would entertain the troops, using the stuff that I would collect. But you see, I'm a collector. Okay, I collect. I collect. Postcards. Okay, lunch boxes, anything rock and roll memorabilia, anything, any ephemera like that. I love. Like old Inquirer magazines. Who's gay and who's not. Okay, it was always a fascination to me. And so I junk picked so much that I got a antique store, okay, an antique store in New Brunswick, New Jersey, right across on the same street that the Stress Factory, okay, a very nice club, the Stress Factory in New Brunswick, New Jersey. All the big guys play there. He doesn't like me, so, but and I'm a prop comic. I can take it. But I had an antique store, and I used to entertain the people with the stuff that was, that was around, and it was ever changing, and I would flirt with girls with it and stuff like that. And then they had this thing called the Gong Show. Remember, everybody knows the Gong Show, and Gene Laughing Machine, Barris, and all that stuff. But they used to have like amateur nights that you would do the Gong Show. So I heard about this, and it was an excuse to go out drinking too. In the 20s, in my 20s, and so I did it for a year, and I never won. Every week, I would go to the same place in Highland Park, and I would perform in front of these people, and they all liked me. I did good. That's where I developed and got that big. Going to this place for every. I think it was every month or every week they had a gong show. And but on the girl who sang, the little girl who came in and sang the Whitney Houston song, okay, the greatest love of all, would always win, okay. And I knew that she was a ringer, okay, but I didn't want to say at my tender age. But right now, I knew she was a ringer because she was there every week and she would win. It was unbelievable. So I've always been like into historic comics too, and Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy, all those, Buster Keaton, even Fatty Arbuckle, I know he started
Right.
the original Me Too, but I was always a big fan, and I would try to sneak into any sort of entertainment venue that I could. I've seen everybody from the Rolling Stones to Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington. But I would always credit myself by sneaking in with my. That's the only acting lessons that you have. You have to act when you got to sneak into places.
No,
I
let me
just
ask you
didn't have.
something. Let me ask you something. So you're doing these gong shows, and you're not winning, but you keep going back, and you're like, and now it was a ringer, so you lost to a ringer, so you can't feel bad about that. When did you decide to start to do stand up, and how did you end up in Philadelphia?
Well, I had a job down in Atlantic City being a baby pitcher salesman. Okay. At JJ Newberry's, okay, an old time box store that you would go to. They would send us, like to all these working class towns to sell people. This is in the 70s, to sell people baby pictures who didn't have the technology or own a camera. Okay, the times were different then. Everybody has a million pictures, but so I would sell these baby pictures. But as I was selling them, I would tell jokes and write them down. Okay, that's no, because I had a paper and pencil every day, and I would write them down. And so there was a scene in Philadelphia. Okay, there was a scene with Barney Weiss. Okay, Steve Young, who you had on, right? Very funny guy. He was one of the. He was in this group. It was a group before they separated into the Comedy Factory outlet to the Comedy Works. So it was funny to see that I heard about it. They were doing auditions, or they were doing open mic almost in Atlantic City. Okay, where I was selling baby pictures, and I heard about it, and I went there. And the first night I was there, you know who Clay Heary is?
Oh yeah, I used to work for Clay at the
Yeah.
outlet.
Well, Clay was one of that group. There was a group of like 12 comedians who were bonding together just before the comedy boom. And so Clay Heary so I get up there and I told the jokes, and I did kind of good. I'm a big fan of puns and and old music. So I sang "Come to Me, My Dole Pineapple Baby." Okay, come to me, my Dole Pineapple Baby. And I had a machete and I cut her up, and don't be blue. All your cares are foolish fancies, baby. You know, you honeydew. It was the puns on fruits and stuff like that. So I was up there. So they tried to get me off. All right, and once they try to get you off, you said, "Well, I'll show those mother." I'll show them. I can. So I found out where they were in Atlantic City, in Philadelphia, because this was a big group from Philadelphia who came down here. I think Ben Curlin was there too. Like people who and I don't think that the guy from Back to the Future was there.
Tom Wilson.
Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson was. He was second generation in that group, but it was pretty funny to see. That my resentment of them taking me off, going, don't they, because Mr. Milton Berle would have liked it, or Jack, as I call him, Mr. Benny, but they would have, but I was in that old time comedy, you know what I mean? And these people were coming up. So I guess I hid behind my props. Okay. And I've always loved puns. So, and I was, I think having an antique store that, I had a built-in audience too, that I could, and built-in, and telephone, hey, it's for you, buddy. I can't, talking to 1920s, they want their jacket back. But, it was a natural thing for me. You know what I mean? Because I would do it all, the puns, bad puns, and I say bad puns, meaning they were great, but and combining them with the thing, it was, it was sort of Rip Taylor-ish, but it was away from Rip Taylor. Rip would have one thing, and I would combine them. And he actually gave me good advice. So
I met Rip Taylor in LA. I was at a play in North Hollywood. I think it was Debbie Casper had written a play, and it was at this theater.
Debbie Casper, I remember.
And I'm walking, and there's Rip Taylor, and I go, "Oh my God, Rip Taylor! I got to get a picture." And I guess he's with, I don't know if it was like his keeper or whatever, because Rip was older at the time, and he's like demanding this guy how to take the picture, and it cracked me up. He's like, "No, take it over here." And I was like, so I have this picture of me with Rip Taylor in front of like this thing that says taking out garbage. And it was just funny because Rip Taylor was underappreciated. I mean, when I was young, I never knew he was bald until eventually I saw him take that. I mean, because when you're little, you think that hair is real. But so you met Rip Taylor?
Well, I wrote for him a couple of times, okay, but I really met him in Las Vegas. When he was in Las Vegas, he was like the house comic for Debbie Reynolds' casino there, a short-lived casino. And I remember it was just when that facade or the over Fremont Street, they made it into a mall. Like you come all the way from Jersey, and you got malls up to here, and then you seen one, you seen them all. But the Debbie Reynolds had she had a casino there, and she had all the props from MGM. She had like all the outfits and background, sets and things like that set up in a casino, and it was great. I mean, I'm a movie buff. And so he was a house comic there. So we got to, I got to hang around with him. He was, he definitely liked boys. He would voice that, and as a comic, he kind of accepted, but you have to force your masculinity, by saying that, because he was just what you ordered, but he'd get cranky sometimes. And Carrot Top has great stories about him because he said he'd come up to Carrot Top and you stole, you stole my persona. You stole my. So Carrot Top answers him by the next night coming on Jay Leno, and he comes out in a bright wig and a thing, and he's throwing confetti like that. He goes, "I didn't steal from Rip Taylor," and after that, he uses a couple of Rip's jokes.
So wait, so you met Rip. So how did you end up writing for him?
Because we were at a juvenile diabetes telethon down there at the Tropicana, and we were the comics who were downstairs. So Rip was there because I think he had diabetes, and who else was there? Tiny Tim was there, okay, and I think Alan Thicke, all these people who were quasi legendary. The guy from the Woody Allen movie. What was the Woody Allen movie where he Roadway Danny Rose? Remember Lou Apollo? Okay, the guy who was singing Spaghetti, Ajita. He was there, and they dissed him. Okay, they dissed the poor guy, and I was like comforting him because they said put me, because there's a lot of people, and then it trickled down to nothing after Tiny Tim went on. Tiny was, I think he actually had diabetes. Tiny.
So you met Rip there, and then he asked you to write jokes?
Rip,
I mean, how did
Rip was, he took, I gave him the devil toupee, okay, which, I had one of his toupees, and I put a devil mask on it, okay, underneath it, and, he could put it on, and he'd do the devil toupee, okay, and then he took my, I had my tubes tied, okay, which, they were cardboard tubes, shipping tubes, and I'd tie a big bow around it and say, I'd like to have a kid, but I have my tubes tied, It was Rip Taylor all the way. I mean, but see, visual puns were very popular in the early 1900s when a lot of the immigrants came in because, they couldn't understand the English too good, and they, and this is simpler, and so there were other, I don't know if Olson and Johnson. Do you know who they are? They had Hell's a Poppin'. They were a comedy team like Abbott and Costello, and they had a lot of visual puns in their act. The Hell's a Poppin' is the name of their thing, and it's a movie, and it was famous. It ran for years and years, and they would do that. A lot of people came out of that as because it was sorry.
So okay, so now I want to get back to Philly. So you go into Philadelphia, and you have this, you're pissed. You're like, I'm going to make Clay Heery and Steve Young and Barney Weiss, you know, I'm going to make them pay. So then how do you end up parlaying into like a legend in Philadelphia?
Well, where everybody starts, okay? It's where everybody starts, Steve. You start being the doorman. I was the doorman at the Comedy Works, okay? And then, I would, because it was on the third floor and there was a precarious stairway going up, somebody had to be there to keep the crowds because this was the middle of the comedy boom, that they talk about. The middle of the comedy boom, and the big entrepreneur was Steve Young. He was the guy who was bringing Seinfeld. He was bringing Eddie Murphy. He was bringing Jay Leno. He was, he knew his stuff. He would champion people like Richard Lewis, who everybody thought was a little weird, and he would champion other questionable sort of Lenny Schultz, God bless him, who passed away yesterday.
Yep.
And I loved Lenny Schultz, and and he was a good friend. And we were actually on Make Me Laugh together, Lenny and Wid, okay, on 2 episodes of Make Me Laugh. I know it's out there, but I was on that show for 3 years on Comedy Central, and then times changed.
So were you working the crowd? You said when there was when at the Works you were doorman. So were you working the crowd as they came?
You start working the crowd. And then I did a couple of open mics, and I was there, and I was available because I was the first time I hitchhiked from my house in Jersey or New Brunswick, right? Not hitch. I took the train, and it was just when just when one of the sports teams, I don't know if it was the Flyers but they had just won. Okay, when I got out of the train, like 8, 9 at night. Okay, and I'm going to the Works, and you know how Philadelphia is. You know how the fans are. And I'm a kid from Jersey. And they were rioting. I saw a naked guy with a horn going like this. I saw the cars getting tipped over. I saw, fire and people screaming in my face. But, I learned to love it and be one of those people. But it was that was my first encounters having to come here. And then I moved here because this is where the action was. The Comedy Works was a big thing. That's where that was the A place. And then they had me. I was at the club, and after I was there a while, I have a sense of style, so I would dress up in here. Okay, I would dress up in a coat and tails and stuff like that. And I would, and when people had a birthday, I would burst out and sing happy birthday to them with the light and everything. And I would give them drinks with dirty names like Penis Colossus and, Harvey Mombanger or something like that. But, that's how you get your start. You got to, and especially at an established or I got in when it was getting new. Yeah, when they separated and made it into the Comedy Factory outlet, and Clay Heery went that way, and so it was a rivalry there. Okay, which was it's kind of funny to see that rivalry is still there sometimes. Okay, but there's so many different gigs and different venues now. It was. They were more pioneer-like, okay? The Comedy Factory outlet and the Comedy Works were the 2 big ones. The first time we played was in the Jailhouse. Did you ever hear of that?
I've heard stories about it. Yeah,
the Jailhouse. It's a beautiful building on. I think it's Walnut Street, right? And it was right across from the Bulletin. Okay, where they printed the Bulletin. It was right across the street, like 34th, 35th. And you would be in there, and all the guys, and late at night, the audience was all guys who came over from the Bulletin, and they had hats made out of the newspaper. Okay, when they were working, so they wouldn't get. So you're there with like 10 people with the with the bulletin hats. Everybody wears a hat, in Philadelphia, but it was just a surreal setting. And the beauty of the building was that it used to be the counting house and the bank for the 1876, when they had the big centennial celebration in Fairmount Park. That was the counting house, and they moved it over there, and that's why they called it the jailhouse, because it had bars on the wall, because it was being safe, not keeping people out, not in. Hey, I'm doing a
No,
costume.
no,
I'm doing a
I
costume
know.
change right here. I want to,
No, okay. So you have to get me. I want to get an understanding of when, at what point of your career did you start bringing more and more and more props on stage? Because as a host, you really wouldn't be able to take up a lot of stage space. As a feature, the headliner would probably be like, "What the fuck is all this shit on the stage?" I mean, what was your early act like? Did you have a lot of props, or did you just have puns and maybe one or two props? Like early win, when you're first hitting the comedy works, you're getting stage time finally. What are you doing on stage?
I You see, I always used the props. I knew that's where I wanted to go, and I had done it for a long time, doing just the Gong Show, and so I didn't see the professional, and nobody ever told me a prop act is frowned upon. I mean, I get stink all over the world. I kind of like it, but because I'm a rebel. And so I kept using the puns and the props. People would just bow their head down and go like that. And I kind of like what I do. Okay, so and I always had those props, and I always had that sense of humor that was a little bit obtuse, but. And my mom was all alive. I could go real dirty. We could all went real dirty at one time. Because that was sort of the style a couple times, to be real dirty. And I guess now it's picking on people who are, mentally handicapped and, and sexually confused.
Well, the thing I gotta say is, there's a difference between the wid and a prop act. Okay, I don't look like a prop act is a guy who I always think is a guy who every once in a while will hold up something like, oh, But your act is a form of art, because you built. It's not like you're not telling jokes. You are writing the jokes. You are doing fun jokes. Your actor, you just go grab shit. You go crazy. You're having fun. So I don't consider like you like the prop act. I think no one ever sits there and goes, "Wid's a prop act," because they're like, we don't. It's different. I think it's a completely different world. But so when do you start headlining? When does that happen? How long into you doing stand up do you start headlining the works? Because once again, the works got heavy hitter headliners, and all of a sudden you find yourself headlining.
What? Well, I had enough ammunition, you know what I mean? Because they had a little back room that they gave to me that I could, so I had an overabundance of props. And I always knew that mass display it's much more effective than just, than cutting the budget and just bringing a couple props. I mean, uh, I've seen every comedian use a prop, except Seinfeld. I never saw him use it, but I've seen, Jay Leno. Yeah, maybe it was only Lang and a prop, and but they all used it at one time. Yeah, because I had the reputation of being like that, of being the prop comic, and but I fell into it naturally, and so that's what I could talk about. That was my thing, to talk. I'm defined by my possessions, okay? Because I have I have a couple warehouses filled with ephemera and toys that I make into art and things like that. So the junk has been very good to me, and I I make dioramas using toys that that I find at flea markets and trash picking and things like that. And I've been in a couple of museums, doing. I was in the Visionary Art Museum down in Baltimore. Visionary means you didn't go to school, and I got the credentials for that. You know, so. But I did that before I told jokes, and I would hide little puns within the world that I would create with dolls and doll houses and cars and things like that, and I would juxtapose all the stuff, and put it into artworks. So, and I've recently done it at the Third Street Gallery, beautiful gallery. Okay, Third Street Gallery, right off Third and South. Okay, it's right next to John's, where Larry Fine was born. I know you're a Stooge fan.
And you got there's that painting.
You're a man.
So okay. So when you start headlining,
when I started headlining,
who are some of your contemporaries?
When I was young, who could follow me? I mean, I was, I didn't have that in my mind, but I was driven by that mass confusion, that mass display, that something that was hard for other people to grasp, but I had been to, years of flea marketing and things like that. So I was used to that kind of world where, I still do it. I still clean up every night after I mess it up, and I still carry those boxes, and it's part of what my fiber.
Now, in the early days, were you going on the road? And when you were going on the road, how did you get around with all the props?
Before 911, or before, we were terribly assaulted, the towers and everything. You could bribe the people who were up front taking your luggage. All you had to do, they got to know me because I would come in with. This is before they had the big, totes, plastic and things like that. So I would have to go to like appliance stores, okay, and get boxes, okay, and all the traffic would around, and I learned how to pack because I would take something and I would put something inside of it, like if I had like blow molds, those sort of things, and they'd have. So I packed things within so I could condense it, and I would have these. I would have these big giant boxes. I'd tape them all up, and I would, and to put it on the plane. And of course, it didn't fit the regulations. Now they would hang me, okay, for bringing that sort of thing. Sometimes I would have like a mannequin arm sticking out because it didn't stick, and just wrap that up and so. But I was able to slip, a 20 to the guys up front. And they would put it on, and it worked, for all those times. But once they got the and it was I had it down to that, and I would go on when I got to my destination. I would go to like a dollar store, and I would buy, I would buy 20 laundry baskets, okay, and I would put the stuff in the laundry baskets, and and have it all. And so I could, organize. And then I would take the laundry baskets when I left the town, and I would sign them and give them to people. Okay, and people years later they were going, every time I do my laundry, I think I said, oh man, I mean,
now
you feel like Rockefeller.
You mentioned Carrot Top earlier. Now, do you know him? How did you meet him? I mean, what's your relationship?
Oh, he loves me, and I like him, and and people say, no. I've seen so many monologists and people who people who do impressions and things like that. And it's a category, okay? How many, and who could say who, who is who, And I hear it from some people, and I kind of go like this because it's such a competitive sort of business. It's not fair. Show business is never fair. That's what you got to get into your mind. Show business is never fair. Some of the worst comics in that of my years at Laugh House are some of the biggest stars out there now. Okay, and some of the funniest guys are still working for the city. You know what I mean? It's never fair, and that's why I kind of like it. Okay, because it's never fair. There's so many wannabes, and there's so many people who never got the opportunity to do it at all. And and that's something that they want to do, but they didn't get to do it once. You know what I mean? It's and once you learn the mechanics of it, and and everybody keeps learning. You just keep learning, and situations change. I couldn't make like Trump jokes, or I couldn't make women jokes, or I couldn't make gay jokes, and you adapt to that. And now it's it's something that is you feel good about it because you make other people feel good, and the wavelength comes in there.
Now,
I wish it was about money.
Here.
I wish it was about money.
I wasn't here when the Laugh House opened. I think I had left for the West Coast. What was it like for you? Because I remember when the Outlet and the Works were closing, and it was so depressing because that was such a great scene. Like you could run across back and forth if you're a young comic, from the Outlet to the Works. But then they disappeared, and I guess the Laugh House opened. For you, what was that like? Because you were such a integral part of the Comedy Works and their history. Did you feel a little like lost because you had to go to a new club? I mean, what did you go through when that happened?
I was there. I was their longest employee at that club. Okay, because I knew, I knew how to play it, and I knew that it was something. When I first went there, I remember I went there with a date. I was scared. I was scared because there was, it was out of my element, and it was a humor that I didn't hear at the Laugh House. At the Laugh House, at the Comedy Works. At the Comedy Works, you heard old time Jewish humor. You know what I mean? The thing. But when I went to the Laugh House, everybody had a nickname, so I fit right in. All right, so weird. That's it, and I was kind of sick of the of that scene, and it fascinated me. Okay, that urban comedy that I mean, I saw polished guys, but I never saw how it started. So I ran the open mic for 10 years, 11 years, I think, and I saw a lot of people come out of there, who are big time people who I saw start from nothing. Okay, who who had no idea, and people who people who developed into very good comedians. Okay, and my advice I told them, because it was rough at one time. It was rough in the beginning. Not for me. I mean, just the atmosphere of the Laugh House. It was rough because it was mostly papered with and you'd get a certain element who come in on freebies or halfies, and so it was so I had to tell the the employees to leave their gats at home. Okay, don't bring the hammer. Okay, and I would and I would always try to pick up the lingo, okay, of the street, the urban lingo, and I would come up with when I get off me hams, or or some sort of you know, I was there bling. You know, I knew what John was before everybody. Okay. They let me in on what John was. And just to hear us say, but that was the most confusing thing in the world. It was like, it was worse than Abbott and Costello, who's on third, because they would go, and then you take the John over to the John, and then you get the John, and then you John, and you join it. And it was a beautiful word. I mean, you know, I'm started using it until, you know, my friends from New Jersey slapped me around and said, no, never do that. You know, now Jersey is, yeah.
Okay, so okay, and I never asked you this, and I don't know if there's a story behind it. The name, the legendary Wid, when at what point of your career did you adopt? Did you go on stage originally, like, ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Wid, or did you go up with your name, being introduced as your name, or when? How did you end up coming with that name? And did you make it up, or did like an MC make it up who just said, "Hey, that guy is a legendary Wid"? I want to hear the story about the legendary Wid.
Okay. I always had you know, I had the name Wid for a long time, and there's with or without. Okay. That wasn't it. It was without ID. Okay. Because I didn't have any, I hitchhiked across the country when I was like 21 or something, like, because I've never been out of, you know, the tri-state, you know, East Coast. So I hitchhiked out to California. All right. And every now and then the cops would pick me up, you know, or just, you know, and ask for stuff. And I never had, you know, I didn't have identification. What's that? You know, and they let me go a couple of times, but they called me and where's our ID? You know, and so I just said I'm weird, you know, to some cops. And so it kind of stuck with me. You know, other people called me Wid, and it became the legendary part. Now get this. Steve Young gave it to me. I said, "What the fuck?
Okay.
What is this?" You know, it was in a newspaper. He said, "Well, people wouldn't understand what WID was." Okay, what WID was. Okay, and yeah, you know, and so I became legendary. WID, you know, that became my, you know, like the Amazing Jonathan, or you know, the Cedric the Entertainer, or Shirley the Temple. But you know, it was different. You know, for me, because I I I went as the Wid because there was a Michael Baldwin out there. There's a Michael Baldwin who was in the movie Phantasm. You know that movie, The Phantasm. Michael
Yeah,
Baldwin.
that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I know it is. I don't think I made it through it, but he had the same name, so I went as Wid for the first, and people would say, "What was the error? And what is it?" You know, this is before nicknames were hip, you know. And so the legendary Wid, Steve Young gave me that, and it stuck with me. And the guy from the Improv with the
Bud Friedman.
who?
Bud Friedman.
No, the Improv, the old time guy, Silva and
Bud Friedman.
Bud Friedman. Yeah, Bud Friedman hated me because I had the monocle of legendary. He said, "You're not legendary." You know, like, you know, I'm a freaking poor prop comic. He's dissing me out and hating me like this. All right. He judged me at a contest in Boston, you know, and I don't know if you know Boston, but, you know, they're mean people. Okay. Mean, you know, and there was a contest that he was judging in Boston, and there was 100 guys trying out in the same night for Johnny Walker liquor, right? So this is to go on a national tour and all this and this. So he he put me on at 101. He put me on last out of all the, you know, and it was, you know, it was embarrassing. Okay. It was, you know, and it was because I had legendary, you know, which didn't, you know, I don't know. I got to play the Improv once or twice, and it was it was a rewarding experience, to be out there.
Now,
But
I know you've met a lot of interesting people. I want to know, and you're friends with Jim Babchak from the Smithereens, right?
yeah,
So
he's
how do you know him?
through when I used to work at the power station. Okay, and he goes out with Cindy. Okay, and they just got engaged. Okay, and Cindy used to work at the power station.
Wait. What's the power station?
That was a recording studio in New York on 53rd Street. The number one recording studio up until it was taken over by it was what the fuck? No, that it was okay. Yeah, this is because spring. The power the power station, okay, was a recording studio. It's back to power station now. It was designed by Tony Bon Jovi, okay, and that was his cousin, I think, John Bon Jovi. But Tony found the Ramones, and Tony also found the Ramones and the Talking Heads, and he had a number one record with Star Wars. Okay, and Tony was my friend, and he was the designer of the power station. He was the producer, and he was my friend. So I got to work there for 5 or 6 years, and maybe even more. And so I saw a lot of rock and rollers, and and had to run errands for them. Okay, I got a bottle of wine at 3 a.m. for Stevie Ray Vaughan and his brother. Okay, I remember that. They thought I was the best. Okay, I said because it was right on 53rd and 8th in New York City, and it was the number one studio for years and years. It had the drum sound. Everybody did it there. Springsteen. The Kinks. Everybody you could think of. Jim Steinman was there. Jim Steinman did Meatloaf, and he did he did a lot of things. He was. We would laugh with each other, but I was there at the front desk, and or upstairs where Tony had his office, and I would get to meet these people, and my favorite memory is because when I was behind the desk, I wasn't there all the time, but sometimes because I would sleep upstairs sometimes, and I would go, I would answer the phone, and so I was the guy they had to look for to talk to call out for food. It wasn't like today where everybody delivers. You had to go to the right ones, and and time testing stuff. But I got to order a lot of food for the fat boys. Okay, the fat boys were there, and they were my best friends. Okay, because I was a puppet master who had dangled good looking food on them, and people like Mick Jagger I got to meet there too, and we said it was on Halloween, and we said that's the best looking Mick Jagger outfit we ever saw, or costume we ever saw, and he would laugh, and but read about the power station, because that's where that group came from, Power Station, Bang a Gong, when they did that,
Right.
And it had a certain sound because Tony is a acoustical genius, okay, and so he designed it in a way that was most calculated, okay, because he's in that way. People they didn't take pictures of it for a long time. You weren't allowed to. They caught one. They caught Herb Alpert, okay, inside measuring the wood inside the power station like that, and because he had his studios in California, and he was going to copy off of the power station. It was,
now Babchak. You said Jim Babchak was engaged.
and he was there every now and then, and we would go see them every now and then, okay, because they play around, they still play around, and I got to know them more personally. They came to my show a couple times, okay, Cindy and Jim, and I knew Jim because I told you I had an antique store in New Brunswick. He had a comic book store, okay. He had a comic book store around the corner from me. And I was always jealous because I was all chaotic and all this the chairs and chipperos and and all sorts of things. And he had a collector's sort of he had a collector's sort of mentality where he had nice comic books all stored away, and everything was it was perfect and together. So he was my, when you're in business, no matter what business, you look at your competitors and, they're not always,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I hate to say it.
I want to get back to your act because what amazes me about your act is, and I know you have the props, but you have to remember, people who you tell a lot of jokes in the course of your set, a lot. Like it's not like, hey, you have a 5-minute story. You tell a lot of jokes. When you hit the stage, do you have certain jokes? Do you have like a planned set list, or do you just go up, look at your stuff, and get inspired?
I have 4 or 5 subjects that I have 3 jokes for. Okay. And I will try to restrain myself of using the props right up front. Sometimes I do right up front, but I like to just do some talking first. Like, hey, how you doing? I like girls. 2 types of ladies, imported and domestic. I had a girlfriend. I met her at Planet Fitness. We didn't work out. I had a girlfriend I met at the Philadelphia Zoo, and she's a keeper. Okay, but so I have like that sort of pattern, but. To drive it home, the props, it's something that that I feel that I'm unique in carrying so much and not having it so polished. I kind of like it in a it's not a punk rock sort of way, but it's intriguing. But you know what, Steve? I found out it's how you dress too, okay? Because when I dress crazy, it's like putting a hat on, the whole thing. They. But when I try to dress conservative, or I do dress conservative, like a jacket and tie and blue jeans, they are much more receptive, okay? And it's much more effective by being looking like a straight guy and coming out there and being bananas.
When did you figure that out?
Well, it's something that I feel it became self-evident. Okay. Yeah, I won this. It's Armani. Salvation Armani. Yeah. Okay. But no, I found out that is this the first time somebody has done a costume change on Coop
Oh
Talk?
yeah. And
Okay.
time
Yeah.
changes.
I want to
Time
take that.
changes.
Yeah. Okay. But no, I found that out through trial and error. And then it was because if you come out and you look straight, they're gonna give you a little bit more respect, and you're not coming right out of the gate as being, and throwing junk around. It's better to, build up to that. And building up to that is either to use less props or, do crowd work. They let anybody do crowd work now. It's like weird.
It's
It used to be a specialized sort of it used to be a specialized sort of art, and different from it. And it took a long time for people to work up to that, to be able to improv and stuff like that. Now kids do it right out of the gate. I think that's like kind of wild, and they
Well,
people like it. Let me see if I
okay,
can.
so I
So
want
here
to
was
ask you.
yes,
No, go ahead. What was that? What were you going to show me?
Gallagher,
Gallagher. Okay.
and then you
So,
sign to somebody. I found this for $2 at Goodwill. Okay, and I'm just thinking that that's the sad part of having like that kind of merch. Okay, I'm gonna have a T-shirt made. Nobody beats the WID. Okay, that's a new T-shirt coming out that I've never had a T-shirt made for me, but here at Trainwreck, okay, they're going to put it together. And what? When's that? April? April 1st. April 1st. Now,
April
I can
Fool's
talk.
Day. There you go.
It's what?
April Fool's Day.
Yeah. Okay. It is our day, isn't it? But and I, but my favorite holiday is Easter because any holiday that has to do with grass and chicks is okay with me. No, uh, uh, we are going to. It is dropping now. Okay. John Kensel and I from Kensel Culture, right here at Trainwreck, we put together a couple of videos. 12 episodes. At flea market adventures. Okay. And we were at a flea market and it was different. We talked to the people who were selling things and, had conversation and quite like you, asked them how they got started and all this stuff. And so that's April Fool's Day. Okay. So watch out for that. Okay.
No. When you go to a flea market, do you have the
Yes.
impulse to always buy? Like, do you sit there and go, this could be like, can you just walk through a flea market without getting inspired by something and going, that would be a bit? Can you enjoy a flea market without actually subconsciously thinking about your act?
Well, because I make that art too, which I've been making before I even made, using, army men. I don't like army men with guns. I like the Indians and the people who were standing around the railroad stations on Lionel, those sort of pedestrian sort of people. And I'll put them in juxtaposed with with knights or of Columbus or Eskimos inside of a toy uh, a toy refrigerator, one of those old beautiful things. But I got them either from flea markets. It, so I look for both, okay, and I also look for any sheet music or any old magazines or newspapers. I love the old newspapers because you can get firsthand history, okay, and history that's forgotten, but you also get the comics and you get the entertainment section. So I've got uh, I've got great Alfred Hitchcock movies that like Vertigo and stuff like that, that is in print. On when they used to have a page like that. You remember that everybody remembers that they used to have a page that was just devoted to movies, and they would show you, like a little spice of life.
I
But
remember the Philadelphia Daily News and Inquirer used to have their listing this thing of every comedy club. It was like in the Daily News, and it would sit there and it'd be little squares, be like the Comedy Works, Legendary Wid, Mike Stankiewicz, Steve Cooper, and it was all those. And my mom used to save them and make a scrapbook. And I didn't know this until years later. And then my uncle, who I never really saw, I stopped by his place in Northeast Philly, and he was a big drinker. And then I knocked on the door, and he goes, I was coming from a show in Northeast Philly, and he goes, hey, let's do some shots and beers. I'm like, I got to drive over the bridge. But he opened up this book, and he had all those cutouts because your name with your work was in the paper every week, which now they don't do that. But it was always cool, and you could see who was
nothing at
working.
all. Well, that was everybody's supposed to get off of Facebook or the internet now. Everybody feels that that printed page is archaic. Nobody. It's kind of you don't. Nobody gets this anymore. Okay, you don't get this. You get people, who are gossiping and we'll tell you right there. Every podcast, every sort of blemish you want to know about somebody is going to be out there on somebody's podcast or somebody's poison tongue. There are all haters out there. Haters out there when you're in the business. It's no matter who. I mean, there's groups that I see that you adore, okay, and that I say they don't do anything for me. But then there's other ones that you adore that I say he's right on, So everybody has different tastes, but sometimes the tastes overlap, So that's what I feel by doing this many years of fraternal organizations and I mean it's the back end of show business. Okay, different bars. I've worked with Jeff Parami for Mafia people. I remember they loved him, they hated me. Okay, they they made us sit in the kitchen while they did the the
Now,
Mafia.
do you still love performing? I mean, do you still get a charge when you go on stage? I mean, you've done so
Oh
many shows.
yeah, yeah. I was okay. I was laughing because I was saying to myself, I've been in nice situations. I get theaters now and then, but on the day before St. Patrick's Day, 2 days ago, it was like one of the. It was in a place called Bridesburg. Okay, Bridesburg, a part of Philadelphia that is it's kind of rough and it's kind of Irish and it's kind of. So where did the Irish go on vacation? To a different bar, right? But this is the bar they go to. All right. It was the Bridesburg pub, the Bridesburg pub. Nice old. If I was still drinking, I would drink in a place like this because it had old, but it had an upstairs. So we did the room, and I'm looking at and I'm saying to myself, because this is the Bridesburg pub, and it kind of I had the greatest time. If you go in thinking about you sabotage yourself. You got to go in and sometimes you got to fake it. Just like men do all the time. They just they go through life but saying yeah, but but I see. I just said but. I had the greatest time there, and and people were there, and beautiful girls, and jovial people, and and it made me feel good, to get that boost, that ego boost that we all look for when we perform. Or I don't know if we look for it, but we get that, and I think that that's part of the addiction that that you get. Uh, like they say with addicted drugs, you're looking for that first time you're getting it, or and I think it works in the same way with the ego boost too. You get addicted to that. You like that even if it's even if it's at the Bridesburg pub, on nowhere, Philadelphia, and yeah, I played like country clubs and DuPonts and and things like that, and I didn't have a good time. So you have to. I never go into it with a negative sort of mindset, and part of that is because I don't want to know who I'm playing with. Okay, I don't want to know who's I don't. I don't want to know, because I might not like them and dread it, that, oh, it's coming up, and you spend more time agonizing about it than you do, pursuing your, or doing your job. So I, a lot of times I'm surprised, of course I'm surprised. And a lot of times I don't want to know the the venue. Okay. I'll listen to the venue and I'll know if it's a club or or a winery or something like that. But I don't want to know the specifics until I get there. Okay. Because then you worry about it. But if you know you're booked for that, you're a professional, you go, and you do that. And mine takes a little bit more logistics, but just think of all the stuff that the Smithereens have to carry around. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. So I have one final question for you, Wade.
Well, okay, wait,
You can
wait.
take another tack off. You can put another costume
well,
change.
no, it's gonna. You can. This one is apropos for what we want to do. All right.
All right.
What is that? All right.
Okay. One final. There you go.
Question
One
time.
final question.
Yes, sir.
You've had a very long career. You've played everywhere. People know you by name. What are a few things that make you proud about your career?
That 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 I functionally did it. Okay. That I pushed the envelope, not just in a in an attitude sort of way. And I'm proud that I always had a good time too, and that I can make people enjoy themselves, and so, and I'm proud I'm still working. I mean, how else could I afford this luxury outfit? Okay, this is something else stuff. This See, this is how I would maybe dress like this. This is crazy and conservative at the same time, and that's what you got to strive for. And I think I'm proud that I'm happy, and I didn't kill anybody, I didn't I didn't sue anybody, I didn't you know I had girlfriends that I would never have, if I was just a pedestrian. It came with its benefits, and the benefits keep coming. It's I didn't make it to the higher strata, but a lot of people didn't. So why should I be that much different? I was always an average student, so I was, but I still have fun what I do, and to go to a flea market or to a Goodwill or something like that with a purpose. Okay, oh, I got to find I got to find that frog. Okay, I'll find, well, or I'll croak. Okay, but I'm sorry, but to go with a purpose to flea markets, April 1st. Don't forget. Okay, flea market adventures. Uh, but to be satisfied with what you do, okay, and when you're up there, sometimes I don't say poo poo to the audience. Some people say or I should have the right to say anything I want. I don't think so. I uh, I'm proud that I curbed uh, my so-called prejudice or fat shaming or or some sort of mean-spirited jokes. Most of them I've cast aside. Not that I had that many, but being able to be a good man and not and not try to start too much controversy. Okay, in the world, because I used to tell the joke, yeah, we should have a woman president. That way, we don't have to pay her as much. Okay, which is a Geraldine Ferrara joke. Okay, it was out there in a thing. I think I read it in the Daily News. And so, but when I said it, every woman in there would get, oh man, because I would set them up. We should have a woman, and then they all go, yeah, yeah, and then yeah, we'd pay her. So, and I couldn't do, yeah. I hear we're going on the back to the metric system because Trump's in the White House. Yeah, because he's a half a liter. Okay, all right. So that's, but we can use that for the Canadian guy now. Yeah,
Exactly.
And that joke was written maybe for Eisenhower or somebody
Right.
like that. So
But
because
I got to tell you, man, this is the first time I've really sat down and talked to you. I really enjoyed it. We're gonna have to hang out one time and tell some rock and roll stories. I know you have some great ones. So your show's coming April 1st. Fleet
yes,
Adventures.
okay. Flea Market Adventures under the banner of Comedy Trainwreck. Okay.
Right, which also you co-host Cancel Culture.
Okay. Yes. Cancel
So
Culture and the Roddenberries, the Star Trek band I'm in. Okay.
okay.
Roddenberry Star Band. Okay. Star Trek.
So people, you gotta check out the Wid when he performs. And Comedy Trainwreck, this is the home of Coop's Comedy Corner. Jimmy Corhan's a great guy. He does a great job with some great shows. He brings comics from Philly to come on and just have fun. He's got Ed McGonigal. He's got Coleman Green. He's got a bunch of other shows. He's got a live dating show. So go support him. Go
He's
to
like
YouTube. Go to YouTube and find past episodes of Coop's Comedy Corner. Rate it, subscribe. Go to following Comedy Trainwreck. If you want to see my other podcast, coopertalk.net, I have over 1,035 episodes. And if you like business, the Coop Tank is my weekly business panel. I host three business people and I moderate them with discussions about all things business. So people, check out the Wid. Check out April 1st. Well, go follow Comedy Trainwreck on YouTube and you'll find all their stuff. And I'm Steve Cooper. He's the Wid. I want to thank you all and you have a great night.
Coops Comedy Corner.